Hey, thanks for waiting, everyone. Let's continue. Last time, we talked about three Japanese college students, Kento, Shoutai, and Yudai, who went to a seaside inn for a part-time job during their vacation. But then, they realized something was off. The landlady never allowed anyone upstairs, and every night, she would quietly bring food up there, alone. So one night, the three of them sneaked up to the second floor only to find a door that had been sealed shut with talismans and piles of leftover food, like offerings from some kind of ritual. Later, while trying to escape, they discovered they'd been cursed by an unknown, powerful force, and their time was running out. Then, with the help of the inn's owner, let's call him Takeshi, they went to seek help from a spiritual master. Alright, that's where we left off. And as before, I'll continue telling the story in first person. After that, we all got into the old man's mini truck. He drove like a maniac, flooring it the whole way, as if we were racing against time. I had no idea how long we'd been driving, but when we finally stopped, we were in front of a small torii gate, with a stone staircase leading up into the woods behind it. We followed the stairs up and arrived at the house, where a young girl was already waiting for us and led us inside. In the center of the room sat three men, a monk, a middle-aged man, and an elderly man. The moment we entered, I heard the middle-aged man mutter under his breath, "What a terrible aura." "Sit," the old monk said. The four of us sat down in a row, facing the three men. The atmosphere was tense, like a serious business negotiation. "So, Mr. Takeshi, there are three of them in total?" "Yeah, this one, Shoutai. He's already started saying it." At that, the monk and the old man exchanged a look. "When you say someone went to the hall, was it this boy?" "No, that was Yudai. Shoutai was just watching from below." "Ah, I see. So tell me, Shoutai, have you ever experienced anything like this before?" "No, never." "Is my situation serious? Am I going to die?" His hands were stiff on his knees, yet shaking violently. "If things continue as they are, yes, without a doubt." "What do you mean? Die?" "I mean, that he'll be taken away." Oh, there it was again, that same phrase. We actually had no idea what it meant. Taken away? By what? It was like the monk could read our thoughts. He explained, "It's only natural that you don't understand. Yudai, when you went to the hall, I mean the second floor, did you feel anything strange?" "I think I heard something. Weird, heavy breathing. And the doors upstairs had all these talismans paper stuck on it." "I see. So, you've probably realized it by now, haven't you? Something not human lives there." "Yeah." "You probably sense that presence through sound. Normally, people can't perceive it. It stayed quietly there, hidden from everyone." After saying that, the monk stood up slowly. "Shoutai, can you say it right now?" "No, but I can't hear it. There's this scratching sound, like claws on the wall. It won't stop. That means it can't come in. I've placed several layers of barriers here to stop them. But we can't stay here forever. We'll head to the Ondo next, just the three of you. Shoutai, once we leave this place, it will appear again, and you'll probably feel the pain. Don't lose focus. I will save you. Just stay with me." Then we left the house with the monk, climbing a long stone staircase that wound its way up to the waist of the mountain. At the same time, Shoutai looked terrible. His eyes darting side to side, shoulders hunched, walking as if every step hurt. So Kento and I walked closer, keeping him in the middle to make him feel safer. When we finally reached the top of the stairs, a large temple came into view. But the monk led us around it, to the right, and further toward the back. There, another torii gate stood, and more stone steps continued beyond it. Before passing through, the monk turned to Shoutai and asked softly, "Shoutai, how are you feeling now?" "It's standing on two legs. It's been following us the whole time, staring right at me." "Got it? That means we don't have much time left. We'd better hurry." When we finally reached the top of the steps, there was a small hut. Alright, here we are. Tonight, you must spend the entire night inside this hut, just the three of you. Only then can the spirit attached to you be cleansed. There are a few rules you must follow exactly. Whether the ritual succeeds or fails depends on this. Rule number 1, no light. That means no flashlights, no phones, nothing that gives off light. Rule number 2, no food, no sleep, and no talking. You are forbidden to speak until sunrise. Rule number 3, no matter what happens, inside or outside, you must not leave the hut. The spirits may try to trick you, to lure you out. Don't believe anything you see or hear. Just stay together inside. Here, take these bags. You'll need them only if you have to relieve yourselves. Then he gave each of us a sip of water from a bamboo tube. He took a mouthful himself and blew it over us like some kind of ritual purification. Finally, he led us into the hut. But suddenly, just as we were about to step inside, Shoutai covered his mouth, bolted out, and started vomiting. Seeing this, the monk's expression turned deadly serious. You didn't go to the hall today, did you? No, yesterday. That's strange. The cleansing should have worked. You shouldn't be reacting like this at the gate of the Ondo. Then his eyes fell on Shoutai's hip bag. Did any of you receive something from someone? We got our pay today. Oh, and the little pouch. That's with the pay. And the rice balls. Yeah, if those count. Are you carrying any of those with you right now? The rice balls are in my big bag, but I've got the pouch and my pay right here, Shoutai said, pulling both from his bag. The monk opened the pouch first, and his face froze instantly. This is not good. He held it open so we could see. Inside were dozens of fingernail clippings, dark red and brown, dried, exactly like the thing that had stuck to my shoes earlier. The monk looked nervous. He collected all our belongings, then made Shoutai drink another sip of the bamboo water and sprayed him again. Finally, we stepped inside the hut. Before closing the door, he said solemnly, "Remember the rules and never leave this house, got it?" He looked each of us in the eye, and only after we all promised him did he finally leave. As the door shut, silence enveloped us. The hut was old enough that the walls were covered in tiny cracks. I looked at my friends, nodded at him, meaning we'll be okay. They both nodded back. Then we just sat there, waiting for the night. Time passed like thick syrup. The silence was maddening. Even though I felt like hours had gone by, the sunlight still streamed through the cracks. Just as my mind started wandering, I heard a rustling behind me. I looked back and saw Kento moving. He was holding a small piece of paper and a pen that I had taken from his pants pockets. That idiot had ignored the monk's rule and smuggled them in. What the hell is he thinking? Then Kento scribbled something down and passed the paper to me. Are you guys okay? I'm fine for now. And Shoutai? I'm fine too. And just like that, our silent conversation began. We can still talk now, but once night comes, we won't be able to. Understood. What time do you think it is? No idea. Feels so long. We just kept talking about random things, and before we knew it, darkness began to fall. We don't have much time, so I wrote down what I needed to say. No matter what happens, let's hang in there till the end. After I wrote that, the mood got heavy again. Deep down, we were all terrified of nightfall. Not just the night, even the waiting. Every single minute of it was torturing. Time passed peacefully. We just sat there, quietly watching the last traces of sunlight faded. Night was heaven for insects. Not long after, cicadas began their song. In the dead silence of the night, it shook my head so hard that I actually felt dizzy for a second. But right in the middle of the chirping, another sound emerged. Faint, yet unmistakable. I focused, it grew clearer. It was a breathing sound, the same one we had heard behind that door. I looked at Shoutai, he didn't move an inch. Couldn't he hear it? Or was it just trying to ignore it? A dozen thoughts raced through my mind. Then the sound grew louder, closer, like it was breathing right beside my shoulder. I froze. I couldn't bring myself to turn around. When I looked at Shoutai, he was still sitting there, motionless. Kento too. So I was the only one who could hear it. The breathing went on for minutes that felt like hours. Then, suddenly, from somewhere outside the hut, another sound came. That sound startled Kento. He suddenly grabbed my arm, and I could feel his sweaty, trembling palms. Now all three of us were on the verge of breaking down. To escape the fear, I shut my eyes and covered my ears. I don't know how long that lasted, but when I finally opened my eyes, all the sounds were gone. Had the terror passed, or was it still there, lurking in the darkness, waiting to strike? I couldn't tell. I turned around to check. Kento was still clutching my arm, so at least I knew he was there. But was Shoutai really still there? When the sound appeared, he hadn't reacted. Was he even okay? Still holding Kento's arm, I slowly inched toward Shoutai, reaching out with my right hand to feel the ear. Then, my fingertips suddenly hit something hard. It was a wall. Wait, that didn't make sense. We were supposed to be in the middle of the room. Where had this wall come from? I panicked. I turned and followed the wall, feeling my way along, but soon hit another corner, another wall. I wanted to cry. Were we trapped? I bit my lip, swallowing back the urge to whisper, and gripped Kento's arm tightly. He seemed to sense my thoughts, took my hand and brought it to the wall so I could feel it, then began moving along it, slowly tracing the edge, turning at each corner. Suddenly, he stopped. He pulled my arm sharply, and my hand touched something warm and trembling. Shoutai. Thank God, we finally found him. But Kento didn't stop. He grabbed my arm again and kept moving. After a while, I saw a faint glow far ahead. Light. Moonlight. Seeping through a tiny gap in the wall. I almost cried. I never thought that silver of light could be a salvation. Once we reached it, I could finally see Shoutai's face. His face was drenched in sweat and tears. I could tell he had definitely heard more than I did. For the next several minutes, the night returned to quiet, but we still clung to each other, the only way we felt even a little safe. Maybe that was it. The hardest part had passed, and we just needed to wait until sunrise. But I was wrong. Absolutely wrong. As soon as we relaxed a bit, Kento suddenly let go of our hands and walked away to relieving himself. It was kind of embarrassingly funny, so dumbly human that Shoutai and I glanced at each other and gave a tiny smirk. But then, we couldn't laugh anymore. Shoutai. Shoutai. Someone was shouting outside the door. It sounds so familiar. Misaki? But her voice was flat, mechanical, emotionless, like she was reading from a broken recording. I feel Shoutai's grip tighten violently. Shoutai, I made you some rice balls. Irashaimase.
Shoutai, I made you some rice balls.
I made you some rice balls. Irashaimase.
The same sentences kept looping, each time more distorted. I was sure it was her voice, but it wasn't her. Something was trying to lure us into opening the door. That's when I remember what the monk had said. No one will come to the shed tonight. So whoever or whatever was speaking out there, don't answer. Don't open the door. Right then, Kento rushed back to us, grabbing my hand. He'd heard it too. I could feel his trembling. The three of us sat frozen, staring at the door, as if waiting for something to smash it open. Then the door began to rattle, shaking violently. Then it started banging on the door, hard, like it was throwing its entire body against it. That sound really startled me, and my mind went blank for a moment. I couldn't help but wonder, what do I do if the door opens? Run as fast as I can to the main hall. The monks are there. That was all I could think about. After a while, it suddenly stopped, then began moving again, slowly, scraping along the outer wall to the left, over and over. Then it hit me. We were near the left side of the hut. Was it trying to find us? Through the gap? We could see the moonlight through it, and it could find us through it too, couldn't it? The thought alone made me panic. I grabbed the other two and pulled them toward the center of the room, staring at the gap. Sure enough, I saw it. It was a black face, so dark you couldn't make out any features. The only thing visible were its long, narrow white eye glowing in the dark. I could tell they held some kind of viciousness, a sly, resentful glare, swaying back and forth outside the wall. Its movements were strange, but then I realized the thuds I'd been hearing weren't from it ramming the door, they were coming from the wall. That spirit, it was slamming its head against the wall with full force. Even as it did that, those white eyes stayed wide open, muttering the whole time. There was no way that thing was human. I couldn't look away. The scene filled me with so much fear that I couldn't move a muscle. I have no idea how long it stayed there. After a while, it stopped, then drifted farther to the left, accompanied by these horrible cawing noises. Once again, the room went dead silent, but in my head, I could still hear it. The sound and the image had burned together. The first to fall was Kento. He suddenly lost all his strength, knelt down, and was gasping for air. Then it was Shoutai. He sat down too, dragging me onto the ground, and I could feel his pants were wet. For the rest of the night, nothing strange happened again, but the waiting still tormented me, and I would never forget it. After what felt like an eternity, I heard the cry of a bird in my ear. I couldn't believe it. Slowly, I lifted my head. Daylight had arrived. Warm yellow morning light seeped through the cracks in the walls, illuminating a small patch on the floor. From far away, hurried footsteps were approaching us and stopped right at the door. Then, it was a monk. When he saw us, his face crumpled like he was about to cry. You did well. You really did well," he said, eyes full of warmth. He didn't hesitate to come in. One by one, he lifted us up and hugged us, as if we were returning heroes. At that moment, I finally felt alive again. We made it. We were alive. That's when I really cried, like a little kid. They carried us back to the house at the foot of the mountain. On the way, we passed that large temple again, and from it, we heard a woman scream, low at first, then rising higher and higher, piercing the air. Kento whispered to me, "Hey, wasn't that the landlady's voice?" I didn't want to believe it, but it really did sound like her. Still, I was too exhausted to care. Soon, we returned to the familiar tatami room. We took a bath and went to sleep. To my surprise, the moment I lay down, an unstoppable wave of sleepiness washed over me. I slept like the dead until the next day when the monk woke me up. Once we were all up, we sat formally in front of the monk. "You all did very well yesterday," he said kindly. "The cleansing ritual was a success. The spirit has been driven away, but I owe you the full story. There's something I'd like to show you." He stood up, left the house, toward the larger temple again. He led us straight to the main hall and then into a small room. He sat down in front of us, holding a small wooden box. "This is the origin of everything that happened." He opened the box. Wrapped in cotton was a small, dried, black object, like a piece of fungus or dried jelly. Well, I have to say, it looks so familiar. I think we even had something like this at my house. What is this? It's an umbilical cord. Your parents might have kept yours too. Many families kept them carefully as a token of life's bond. This one, too, was kept with deep affection. You may think this is disgusting, but long ago, there were old beliefs surrounding it. Child's protective charm. What? Yes. In ancient times, the umbilical cord was thought to protect the child. Some even said, if a child fell deathly ill, You could grind and brew the cord into a tonic to save them. Anyway, any of it stemmed from a parent's pure desire to protect their child. But as this tradition gradually evolved, things started to spiral out of control. People in this area made their living from fishing, generation after generation. The sea is dangerous. Every year, several children never return. Eventually, those mothers started giving their kids their umbilical cords, not only as a protective charm, but also to make sure that even if they got lost, they could always find their way back home. When a child was swept away by waves, after several days, they were presumed dead. But with the umbilical cord, their souls will find way back. But these things can't really be verified. Even if the souls do come back, how would anyone know? So over time, people just dismissed it as a superstition, until one day, that superstition actually came true. One morning, a mother appeared, crying tears of joy, claiming her child had returned. The villagers didn't believe her. After all, it had been 3 years since her child was lost at sea. One villager asked her to show them her child, but she said mysteriously, "Just wait a little longer, I'll show you soon." Hearing that, the villagers all scattered. This poor woman must have lost her mind. But the next day, another mother appeared, saying the same thing, but she still couldn't show anyone yet. Now the villagers grew confused. They went to her house for answers. It was her husband who opened the door. However, he stammered a bit, eyes shifting like he was hiding something, just saying, "I don't know anything about that." When they pressed him further, he suddenly snapped, "It's none of your business! Stay away!" A few days later, one of the villagers claimed he'd seen the first mother walking along the shore the previous night, holding her child's hand, but it was dark, so he couldn't see clearly. But she looked so happy, chatting softly with the kid. Hearing that, the villagers felt guilty for doubting her. They decided to visit her home to apologize and to celebrate that their child had come back. When they arrived, the mother opened the door with a radiant smile, and behind her stood her child. But that sight completely terrified everyone. Because that wasn't her child. It was a living dead, maybe. The child's skin was bluish purple, the body grotesquely swollen, the eyelids were puffed up so much that only the whites of the eyes were visible, and the pupils pointed in the opposite directions. From the mouth came foamy bubbles, and the child let out strange, shrieking sounds as the mother gently spoke to it, sounds like a crow cawing. At that point, the villagers all fled in terror. Later that night, they reported it to the village chief. The chief realized this was beyond his power to handle and decided to seek help from a monk, my ancestor. When my ancestor heard their story, he knew immediately how serious it was. He rushed to the mother's home, taking her straight to the temple. Meanwhile, the child followed them all the way, uttering those same piercing, inhuman cries. Once they arrived, the monk locked the mother in a room, hoping to talk to her, but being separated from her child, even for a moment, drove her into hysterics. In the end, she let out a scream, then burst through the door with a strength no one thought possible, sprinting straight out of the temple. Later, people went to her house to find her, but she was already gone. But inside the house, strange paper talismans were plastered all over the walls, and in one corner lay a heap of rotten food scraps, reeking of decay, just like what Yudai saw on the second floor. Then everyone realized the truth. This mother must have performed some kind of ritual, and it created something horrifying, masquerading as her child. Worried, the villagers began searching for her. The monk, at the same time, rushed to the home of the second mother, but by the time he arrived, it was already too late. She had lost her mind, calling her child's name toward the wall, and when the monk tried to approach, she glared at him with rollback eyes, shrieking and hissing like an animal protecting its young. But the monk didn't back down. They grabbed the mother, dragged her away into the Ondo Hut, tied her up, and sealed her inside. Of course, the mother was struggling harshly in the room, even trying to harm herself. That day, all the monks sat outside in a circle, chanting as loud as they could. Then, as they prayed, that thing appeared. a kind of black shadow. At first, it just wrinkled on the ground, circling the Ondo again and again, desperately searching for its mother. Then, suddenly, it tried to stand, only to collapse onto all fours, crawling like a wild animal. Its limbs twisted unnaturally, bending backward like a spider's. Within just a few seconds, it attempted to rise again, which shocked all the monks, prompting them to pray louder. After several minutes, the black entity let out a piercing groan, and its arms and legs began to fall off, leaving only the body on the ground, wriggling like a giant worm. It seemed as if it had reverted to the first stage of existence. As dawn broke, it shrank and withered, until all that remained was a single, dried umbilical cord. Wait, so that umbilical cord? Don't tell me. Yes, this morning, we found this lying on a rock behind the Ondo Hall. Why us? Why did it choose us? Honestly, I don't know either. Normally, the child only appears to its own mother. Even people living with her usually can't see it. I have no idea why it showed up in front of you boys. And then, what about the mother? Did anyone ask her about the ritual? Unfortunately, no. When people finally opened the Ondo Hall, they found the mother collapsed inside and completely lost her sanity. No one knows whether it was grief from losing her child a second time or the effect of something much darker. As for the other mother, the one the villagers had been searching for, people had found her body washed up on the shore nearby. Her body had been eaten away by something, yet her face wore an expression of pure happiness. After that, the villagers decided to tear down the mother's house. When they did, they found a note she had written, something like a gross record of her child after the ritual began. The monk showed us the diary, and he said, I can't claim to understand everything, but if you compare the record with the ritual, it seemed that the thing she created could evolve or devolve. After that, similar incidents were occasionally recorded in the temple's history, though very rare. But in every single case, there's no mention of how or where these mothers learned the ritual, but all of them either died or lost the ability to speak entirely. However, this time, it's different. You boys saw the entity, there must be a reason, and I intend to find out what it is, maybe even put an end to this dark magic once and for all. So in our story, that mother is a landlady, isn't she? Yes. According to Mr. Takeshi, his wife wasn't a local. She married him and moved here, then had an only son. But a few years ago, the boy went missing at sea. Despite an extensive search, he was never found. The loss shattered her, but time heals everything. Life went back to normal, at least on the surface. Until one day, out of nowhere, the inn's entire second floor was closed off. People thought it strange, but nobody pried, and now we know why. The landlady must have somehow learned about that forbidden ritual, then built a hall at the top of the staircase and performed the ceremony there. However, I don't think she ever completed the ritual. Remember what I said? Keeping the umbilical cord was a local tradition, but she was an outsider, so she probably didn't have hers, which means that thing couldn't even recognize who its mother was. So my guess is that all of it were part of the landlady's plan. She knew from the beginning what would happen, but she still allowed it to happen, and you guys would have been the victim of this ritual. After finishing the story, the monk finally said one last thing to us. Actually, I truly regret leaving you inside that hall, but I had to save both you and the landlady. While you were inside, we bound her in the main temple and began chanting sutras, just as my ancestor once did. We didn't know whether that thing would go to find you or come to find the mother. Well, I didn't think he needed to apologize. In fact, he saved our lives. But Shoutai glared at the monk and shouted, That's bullshit! Are you gambling with our lives? So as long as she could get her son back, our lives didn't matter, huh? The monk stayed silent. Tell us everything! Why would you let this happen? Takeshi knew it too, didn't he? Why didn't anyone see anything? Mr. Takeshi didn't know. This story runs deep in this land, Whatever he knew was only as a legend. Liar! He acted like he did! At that time, Shoutai started losing control. We had to physically hold him back. The monk didn't move. He just listened to Shoutai's angry voice feeding the rage breathing. Don't screw with me! Take me to them! I wanna see them! Right now! Since I've decided to tell you everything, I will also show you everything. I'll take you to where the landlady is. That sentence broke the tension, and we all fell silent. We never thought he would agree so easily. Without hesitation, he led us across a long covered hallway and finally reached a small, detached building. As we approached, I began to hear it. Low moaning, the rhythmic chanting of monks, and something else. My palms were sweating. When the monks slid open the door, we saw the landlady surrounded by chanting monks. She was there, but not like a human. Her body jerked violently, her spine arching and cracking with every spasm, slamming against the floor over and over, producing a horrifying sound. Amidst it all, she let out low, guttural moans that barely sounded human. I can't stay here. Let's go. We stepped outside, but the image of the landlady still lingers in my mind. That thing was far scarier than I had imagined. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but ask the monk, hadn't the exorcism worked? I believe the entity that followed you has been purified. You are here, unharmed, and the umbilical cord is with us. However, I say, so it wasn't just one thing I saw. It wasn't just one. Then he fell silent, deep in thought. After a while, he suddenly looked nervous and told us, "Go to the house where I first met you. Don't step outside no matter what. I'll send someone later." Before we could even react, he ran off toward the annex, where the landlady was. A few moments later, we saw several monks coming out, carrying something wrapped in a huge cloth. Whatever was inside kept twitching and wriggling, but all of us knew it had to be the landlady. We watched in shock, fear hitting us all at once. Wasting no more time, we hurried back to the house. After that, we stayed in the room until night. A monk came by, saying we needed to spend the night there, and he would stay with us the entire time. With that, we passed a peaceful night. The next day, when we woke up, the monk told us that the exorcism had been completed. The black shadow had regressed and vanished, but the landlady, we couldn't save her. Sorry. You mean she's dead? He shook his head. Is she still like that? The monk just frowned. He didn't say yes, but he didn't say no either. He told us that what happened to her wasn't about possession anymore. It was something far more complex to explain. At first, she planned to perform the ritual, but for some reason, the one she did was quite different from the original. It wasn't the same at all. She did have the umbilical cord, but the result she got was no longer what the ritual was meant to summon. There were multiple entities in that hall, and whether her son was among them, no one knew. He didn't explain much after that, just left us with one sentence. The ending of that rite is always a cruel one. A mother's love can turn into something far darker than any spirit. That afternoon, Mr. Takeshi came back. He looked awful. Pale, hollow, completely broken. The moment he saw us, he started crying and apologizing. In the end, he suggested sending us to the train station. On the road, Mr. Takeshi wouldn't stop talking, completely oblivious to how dead silent we were. A child eating the parent? Sounds like a damn spider story, doesn't it? Hey, you boys, don't try that ritual yourselves, alright? You're on your own if you do. He laughed like it was a joke, but none of us were laughing. That's when I realized the monk hadn't told us everything, and Takeshi must know more. They all kept the truth from us. But at this point, chasing the truth no longer mattered. We survived, and we never returned. That was enough for me. After we came back home, nothing happened. Really, nothing strange at all. When I told the story to 2 other friends, they said they believed us. Sort of. But then, out of curiosity, They actually called that in. A woman picked up the phone. They said she sounded like a normal lady, but through the phone, a lot of crows were crying in the background. They also tried to persuade me to call her again to identify if the lady was a landlady, but I couldn't do it. Whether that woman was the hostess or not, I just didn't have the guts to find out. Yes, that was where the story ends. Abruptly, almost like a half-open ending. What really happened to the landlady, no one knows. Even the OP never found out. But judging from that little after clip, it's very likely she had already gone insane. Maybe the entire inn had already been swallowed by that thing, turning into a place cursed beyond salvation. As for whether this story is real, I did some digging about Japan's umbilical cord culture, and it turns out to be true. Japanese hospitals actually keep a newborn's umbilical cord, sealing it in a small wooden box called kotobuki bako, and hand it to the mother when she is discharged. It's also a symbolic way of proving that the child truly belongs to her. In some local traditions, the umbilical cord is believed to be directly tied to a child's health. If it's not properly kept, or worse, lost, it could affect the child's well-being, even their fate. More importantly, it represents a bond between mother and child. Parents might show it to their kids on birthdays or give it to them when they leave home or get married, as both a charm of protection and a sign of separation. So, considering all that, it's not hard to imagine why, in some regions, people will start treating the umbilical cord as something sacred. And from there, strange rituals are born. You know how it goes. Many ancient customs begin with blessings, but end up revealing the dark side of human desire. It's pretty common, I think. By the way, this story later became a film adaptation titled Nightmare Resort. If you're curious, go check it out. The visuals might just haunt you more than the story itself. Alright, next week's topic is something a little unusual. You all know Bruce Lee, right? Well, according to one submission, his death might be a little connected to a supernatural encounter he had while filming. And there will be more telling tales, real accounts told by celebrities themselves. If that sounds interesting, make sure to tune in next Saturday night. I'll be waiting for you here, the same time, the same place. Don't miss it.